Aloha y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a requested video that was requested after I did my reasons I will not support MLM makeup companies. And that was to discuss my MLM experience, as I had worked for one for around 2.5 years, I believe. It's been a while now. And now I will say right off the bat, if you're here to hear a story of they lied to me, they stole my money, I went bankrupt, that's not what you're gonna get out of this, because I feel the company I worked for in my experience was rather fortunate compared to a lot of people, you know, doing LuLaRoe, doing doTERRA, doing Mary Kay, doing Unique, you know, that sort of thing. And so this is just going to be talking about my honest experience from being recruited to what made me decide to not be a part of the company anymore. And I will say right off the bat that part of my failing was entirely due to myself. Had I worked harder than I did, I probably could have made at least a certain amount of money on return. But I was kind of lazy about it and just had other things going on that ended up having me just not invest as much time in my company as I could have. I will not be saying the name of said company because I don't want anything to come back to bite me in the butt for legal reasons. But kind of the way that all of these things start, I had a friend, my best friend at the time, who was like, hey, you want to come to this party? You want to look at these products? You want to buy some things? And I was like, okay. And so I went with my mom. Or maybe I can't remember. I went to the party and it was the typical, you know, ladies all around in the circle. They're showing the product, they're doing the thing, they're demoing it, and then they go into the whole spiel. I was able to quit my job and do this. I was able to get myself out of debt. They had this whole like price down of like how much you could make per party, you know, the percentage you made when you made a sale, you know, and I'm sitting there, you know, poor broke teenager or young adult, just like, yeah, I could sell this stuff. And so we're going through and we're doing the whatever. And the product is nice. The product is overpriced. I will admit that. Like, it's, in terms of like any of y'all doing, you know, with the whole makeup thing, it's definitely more high-end price than it is drugstore. But people seem to really like it. You know, everyone was like, oh my goodness, look at this, so beautiful, it's so wonderful. And so we did that. I think I may have purchased something, but I don't think I made like a really big purchase. And then I went to another one with the same friend. She was the lady that they had the parties with. She was kind of like a friend of the, not so much a friend of the family, but she did parties for like all the ladies, you know, this lady, and then they'd go to it, and then that lady, and it was very much like this intertwined inner circle. And so I went to another party and I was like, you know what, I want to do this. I think this would be absolutely fantastic. Now this brand, I will say, fashion related, that's all I'm gonna say. And at the time, I was definitely, I hadn't reached this transformation. I was very much more like, ooh, designer and fancy and classy and Michael Kors and Dior and Chanel and Kate Spade. And so kind of this brand's aesthetic fit more into what I was vibing with back then. And so I said, okay, all right, let's go in. I think the purchase, I'm pretty sure the buy-in, this brand did have a buy-in, which is you need to buy the permission to be a consultant, a seller for said company. You needed to purchase your inventory, and I'm pretty sure there were different levels to how much inventory you could buy. They gave you like binders and stuff like that to kind of keep track of everything. They actually, compared to other MLMs I've seen and done research on and heard from other people, in the startup, they're actually pretty invested in helping you. At least my upline was. But I believe the buy-in that I went in for was around $500. And so we started in on that. And I remember having my first party and being like, woo, this is fantastic. This is so great. This is wonderful. This is amazing. And it's honestly a little interesting because I look back and I'm like, yeah, how much better could have the experience been had I been more interested in investing? Now, I was young. I believe I want to say 21 or 22. And at that time in my life, the adult part of my brain hadn't finished developing. And so I was still very flighty and very whatever. You know, if I joined that whatever now, I would have that on lockdown. But I will admit my upline, the lady who signed me in, she was lovely. She was such a sweet lady, and not in just a like, you know, oh, sell so I can get a percentage, because she did. And she had a huge network of, she reached a very high level. While I was still under her, there was another girl who was the one, because you had the ones under her and then you had the ones under the ones that were under her. And so she hit a certain hallmark, while I was, you know, under her. And so, that was fine. My experience with that was fine. And it was, you know, a fairly good, you know, she was very involved in, like, you know, I remember, this is my own failing, which is how I know that a part of the problem was me. But I remember having a meeting with her and she was like, so, well, how much time do you think you need to put into your business? And I'm like, 45 minutes. And she was like, do you do 45 minutes a day on a regular job? You know, she was very good at laying out and being very realistic about the amount of work you had to put into this to make it work. Then let's kind of go into like the whole how you made it work. And like a lot of MLMs, you make it work by having parties. And what these parties are is you have your product, you bring it out, you demo it, and then hopefully people will buy it. And I had parties at multiple different like areas and times, because one thing that your upline does for you is they host a startup party for you. So they do everything. They bring the refreshments, they set everything up. They are the one, it's as if it's one of their parties, but you are receiving the proceeds and the benefits from it to then help as a boost to your business. So like I tell people, compared to like other things, you know, the amount of help that was given to me, at least from my upline, you know, was heads and tails completely different. But unfortunately, kind of like what we all say with like the MLM thing is it's always a problem because, you know, what do they say when you join? They're like, well, recruit a friend. Recruit your mother, your grandmother, your sister, your aunt, your niece. And that dilutes the like area. And so like the way it is with this particular MLM, and I'm not sure if that's the way it is for all of them, but with this particular company, it was like if you had a lady who had these parties, she already had the lady that she had parties with. So you had these group of, you know, really tightly knit ladies who all purchased and all had parties from the same person. So there wasn't a lot of room for cross-pollination. In order to make this really viable, I would need to go like to a completely different area of whatever so that I wouldn't be kind of double dipping in and dealing with the whole fact that, you know, they already had their lady. I was just someone that they didn't want to buy from me. And so also one problem, and I feel like this is a problem with a lot of MLMs, is the fact that the product was pricier. You know, I understand that there were some ladies, oh my stars, you have like the ladies who are die hard, the ladies who are like, I am going to buy $600 worth of product at one party. But typically those ladies weren't, you know, at my parties. I had the people who would be like, one thing, maybe I'll buy later. And it's like, I'm drowning. So parties were difficult. Parties were also difficult because you did have to, they encourage you to invest in giveaway things, having games, you know, vouchers and stuff like that to kind of get people involved. I mean, what do people love? People love free stuff, but it's free for them, whereas it is an expense for you. And I understand now that I'm a YouTuber and now that I'm trying to do my own thing, that there is a certain amount of money that needs to be invested in a business before you start to make profit, break even, or all of that. But I feel like there wasn't even a different business model like given. It was like, you have to do it this way. You have to have freebies. You have to have these kind of games. You have to do this sort of thing. This is what gets people in. And I would do those. And it was great and it was wonderful, except for the fact that I wasn't selling anything. And so one way that's kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to do to like sell? And that was fresh inventory. Now this company refreshed their stock, I believe, 2 or 3 times a year. I believe we had a like spring. Yeah, we had spring, summer / fall, and then winter. And then on top of the winter collection, we had a whole mini Christmas collection. And now the frustrating part about the Christmas and just buying inventory on a whole, because you have inventory that's gonna get discontinued. So you have this one product that sells really great for you, and then come the next season, they're like, oh, BTW, this one doesn't exist anymore. And you're like, well, great. And then kind of in the same way with the Christmas, whatever, you know, you'd have this little Christmas catalog, and the Christmas catalog, the period of time in which you could purchase the Christmas items was, I believe, 2 months. It was a very short window, and kind of like, you know, the pieces, you buy the pieces at your percentage thing. So because if people see the pieces and are able to handle them, then they're more likely to buy. So you buy the whole winter collection and then you sell maybe 5 pieces, and then the winter collection is obsolete. So you spent all that money in an attempt to make money, but you end up just losing money trying to desperately stay on top. And so it was frustrating in that sense, because I did go to one of the like big training meetings. I mean, this is where it kind of does turn into like the whole drinking the Kool-Aid type thing, because basically what this training meeting was, and it was very uplifting. It's very much, you know, you get this band of people and it's just like, woo, crazy, whatever. But there wasn't really any training. The one meeting, although there was the big meeting, and then I did have some like little ones which involved like this little local group. But the one really big one I went to that was like held at a hotel and all kinds of fancy, and we're all running around with name tags and pins and crap, was basically, here's the new line, here's the new collection, and then a bunch of higher up people discussing how absolutely wonderful this company is, how its morals and its ethics, everything's based on amazingness, and how it has changed their lives, and they're able to quit this and they make 50 million figures and stuff like that. So you have, you know, me, and I'm like, yeah, I want that. What do I gotta do? Which in all honesty, I probably should have applied myself for. That is with a caveat. You know, this wasn't a, you know, hat that didn't have my arm pinned behind my back saying, give us your money. A lot of it was me. But there wasn't really any like training. There wasn't any like, you know, sales training or any kind of, you know, business management training or even time management training. Any sort of training that you would need to own your own business, they weren't really giving. It was just kind of this big, bright, beautiful song of look how wonderful and amazing all of this is, and our lives are changed, and my upline's standing there crying and I'm crying, and I'm like, why am I crying? The best party, this is kind of the best party that I ever had financially, like the biggest pool that I had for myself and the most stuff I ever sold, was a party I had over Christmas with my family. Like basically it was my grandmother, my aunt, my, you know, whatever. It was them buying jewelry. And the fact that, and I just let it slip what I sold. I don't care. I'm moving on. But the fact that, you know, it takes family to be the ones that are helping me bring in the income, it's like, it's it's not really viable, is it? And speaking of family is kind of going into why I stopped. Not my family, but this is kind of going into that whole, like, you know, you have a very small little group, so, you know, they're not cross-pollinating. But my best friend at the time, my best friend who was, you know, who had gotten me into it, she ended up signing up under the same lady who signed me up. And I admit a lot of this is my own, like, problem and stuff like that, but my friend, she ended up being able to sell to her family, because she got parties from her family, from her grandmother, from her aunts, from her boyfriend's mother, her boyfriend's sisters, and she would have parties where she would sell like $3,000 of product at one party. And it was, I admit, it was really frustrating to me, because I'm like, I feel like I'm sitting here struggling, and I have my friend who just comes in and she's like, she just sells to her family, and it's like, and her family, you know, these people, they don't want to, you know, buy from anyone else. They want to buy from her. They want to keep it, you know, in with the community. And so I must admit that was super frustrating to me, because she and I were both very close friends at the time, and just the fact that there was this, like, we're doing the same thing, but she was somehow able to just do so much better than me. I was just like, it became almost a problem in our relationship, because you had our relationship that then kind of became tainted by this whole, well, you're doing so much better in this business venture than I am. Why am I struggling and you're making total bank? So we did have that. Then things kind of got into this part of what drew me to this company and wanting to work for them was they did preach that idea of you're not alone. You have people who want to work for you, work with you. You know, you will always have an open ear or a shoulder to cry on, you know, someone to listen to you. And so, you know, we're going on and stuff like that. And I'm like emailing people and I'm like, hey, I'm really struggling. What can I do? And like my upline, because my upline gave me the number and the whatever of the person who signed her on. And I would email her and I'd be like, hey, I'm kind of struggling. And she's like, well, we're having this, you know, meeting coming up. We're having this big whatever, you know, come to that. And I'm like, but I need help now. I need some help figuring out how to do this right now, you know, not in 2.5 weeks. And so there was just this, almost this disconnect, and I felt like, you know, at the time of this, my self-esteem was like this big, just a little bit. And so I felt very pushed aside, because my best friend, she was, you know, all kinds of what they're like, oh, she's doing amazing, she's doing great, and I felt like they were doing all the things to help her. Well, I was just like, I need help too. And I could be projecting a lot. I don't want to say, oh, well, they helped her because she was making so much more money. You know, I don't want to, you know, say that. But when you're reaching out to someone and you're saying, hey, I need your help. Can you help me? And their idea of help is like, well, have you done this step on the little step thing? Have you recited your values? Have you, you know, type thing, come to the meeting? And I'm like, that's not very hands-on, is it? And I'm not asking for you to like coach me through everything, but maybe throw me a little something. In this MLM, you did every year there, aside from purchasing new merchandise, new stock and everything like that, there is also a fee that you have to pay every year in order to be legally allowed to sell their product and be a consultant. And so probably about 2 or 3 months before I made the decision that I'm like, I'm not gonna renew, I'm just gonna let it go, because the last time I had to renew, I scraped together the money to re-enlist. And then I ended up, something really horrible happened to my upline, a member in my upline's family. And I found out about it through my best friend's best friend. And I was like, what, she's not even, you know, in the company going on. And I probably took this entirely the wrong way. I probably internalized it a little too much, but I was like, you know, you invest so much into and you think you're someone's friend, and then to not even be in the conversation about finding out about this kind of solidified the realization that it wasn't a great relationship. It wasn't an actual friendship. It wasn't anything that was actually being completely invested in by the other party. And I remember writing a tearful, I remember sobbing while I was writing this email to my my upline's upline, and just crying and being like, you know, it was really hard for me to feel like I was at rock bottom and no one was coming to me and saying, are you okay? Do you need help? When there's this like preach of all this, you know, love, and when we're actually together, there's all this like, you know, and then when the distance is established, there's none of that. And I did say it felt absolutely awful to find out about what had happened through this. I was like, you know, the fact that the no connection and everything like that, and I just poured my heart out on the situation. I was like, I really want to keep trying to do this, but I feel like, you know, I need to feel like I'm being supported, like I can do this. And I felt like the support wasn't there, but I want to make it work. And I love my upline so much and everything. And I never got a response. I waited probably 2 weeks. Well, honestly, I waited until it was renewal time, but I waited 2 weeks until I was like, yeah, I don't think it's a case of her not checking her email or not getting to it. She's not going to respond to me. And that was sort of the final nail in the coffin that sort of proved that I didn't really matter. I was struggling. I wasn't flourishing. I wasn't doing well. And kind of in a return, I wasn't worth their time to make work compared to someone else who was doing fine on their own without help. And so, you know, the time came and the whatever, and I admit I struggled. I was like, and you know, I let it go. And I feel like being in an MLM, you know, like I said, this company I feel isn't one of the worst. I haven't heard or read any really bad, horrifying, or negative experiences with this. But it really did kind of, I don't want to say solidify, it didn't help my shopping addiction and other problems I had at the time. And there really wasn't a baseline of help or any kind of like there wasn't any kind of like outreach program or person, you know, you were doing it basically by yourself, and that's a lot without any sort of training. You can't jump from being like, I have no job, to I'm running a business. I've learned that with YouTube. YouTube has taught me I gotta have a schedule. I gotta have priorities. I gotta have, you know, there's this whole list of things I gotta do to make this work. And I just wasn't getting that. And so it was just, you know, it was my decision to just say goodbye. And I admit, I said jewelry. I said, you know, I said it. I've still got jewelry from this company that's like still hanging around. Some of it's really pretty. I got a pair of earrings that if I ever get to do the drag queen look, I'm wearing those earrings. But on a whole, it was just, you know, I could have taken a lot more from it had I been older and more experienced and less immature and stupid. But it really was, I feel, a little bit disappointing. There's not one thing to blame. It was me, it was my upline, it was the situation. You know, there are a lot of factors going into why it ended up not working, but it just didn't end up being a thing. I hope you all enjoyed that. I know it wasn't this total like drama, you know, I was screwed by the company, I lost all, you know, it wasn't that kind of thing. It was just sort of a, you know, kind of how it happened and unfolded. I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If any of y'all have had any kind of experience, please, I mean, I guess you can speculate down below what you think the company was, but I'm not going to be like, well, no, it was actually this one. So there is that. But definitely let me know if you've had any kind of MLM experience, either selling it or being shilled it, you know, everything like that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you. And as always, keep it real. Mwah!